I've been wanting to make videos to help creatives or filmmakers, especially, but didn't want to. I kind of assumed that everything's already been talked about, and I felt like I was going to be talking in platitudes if I'm talking about these things. But I feel like there is a lack for this in tutorial videos because a lot of tutorials are like about the technical and what to set your camera settings at and how to use a certain camera or whatever. But more generally, like business side of filmmaking or creative freelancing, I thought that these things might be helpful because they've helped me make my job enjoyable, I guess you could say. So first off, when taking a job and how much I should charge is usually the first question a lot of young freelancers ask me is like, how do you decide what to charge? Well, first off, think about this as like, if you're standing on a cliff with a friend, usually the friend will ask like, how much would it cost for you to jump off of this cliff into the water? And they say, would you do this for $50? And then you're like, I'm scared of heights. I want to do this for $50. And then they start going, well, maybe $100 or $150. Then you start negotiating and you say, well, if I jump off this cliff right now into the water, do I get a change of clothes? Do I have to do it right now? Or could I plan it? Can I bring a change of clothes? Do I get to leave right when I'm done? Will there be a raft at the bottom? Whatever. So you start negotiating because you're actually thinking about doing it. So picture yourself doing the job. So if somebody asks you to do a music video for a song you don't like, or a wedding video, or an orientation video, a Kickstarter video, or a genre of film that you don't really care for, think, well, picture yourself doing it, and then say, well, would that be worth it to me to be busy for the next 3 weeks working on a song that I don't really care for? And then you start thinking, well, you'd have to pay me this much. Or you start thinking the negotiation, well, can I change this, or can I edit the song, or whatever? And then it starts making it worth it to you, so with the money and whatnot. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, what do you do with the money after you have the job, after you've gotten your paycheck? What do you do with your money? For me, I've narrowed it down to 7 things. I spend my money on friends, like hanging out with friends, going out to eat, playing putt-putt, whatever. I don't know. Learning. So like books, tutorial videos, things like that. So experience, I guess you could say. Experience in the sense of like getting experience. Exposure, so websites, marketing, things that are going to help me as a creative that's going to, give me more exposure to give me more jobs, essentially. And that could be like spending coffee to take a client out for coffee or something like that. So that would fall under the exposure thing. Adventure, like going on trips, traveling, road trips, getting to go overseas, or any kind of adventure like that, getting to go skydiving and whatnot. Things like food and computers and stuff. In this case, it'd be called bartering. You'll see where I'm getting at with this. The resume, so like things, getting to work with a client that I could use for the rest of my life and say, I worked with this client, or worked with this person, or whatever. So like usually like people spend a lot of money on having a degree for their resume. So that would be how you spend your money to obtain a resume. And then lastly, charity or ministry or nonprofits and stuff, places that you believe in that you want to support. So in those 7 things, I think of, if you have your 7 cups and they're all that and they're all empty, and then you have your money cup and that's the full one. Okay, so for a job, they're going to give you that money, and then what you're going to do with that money is pouring that into each cup. In different amounts. So what if the job itself had those things inherently in them? So, for example, I got to go to Iraq for a job. So that was adventure. So I could pour the money into that. I got to go with a friend, so I'd pour that into that. It was a nationally broadcasted documentary, so I got to pour it into that. And a few other things, but basically they paid me, but they didn't pay my full rates. But I was fine with that because I was getting the adventure, I was getting the exposure, I was getting to work with a camera I never worked with, so I was getting the experience. I was getting to hang out with friends, and I think that was like the main cups that got full there. So that's how I see taking jobs, is just think about what are you getting out of it besides financially, because you're essentially skipping the middleman of money and getting the things that you want to get either way. So if a job's going to give you exposure, experience, resume, whatever else, then maybe you should adjust your rates accordingly if they need you to. If you can have a full cup over here in the money side and fill it up in the other stuff, awesome. But when you're sitting at that cliff thinking about whether or not you should take the job, think about what it's offering you besides just the money. Is it offering you the other things? So that's kind of how I take jobs, or decide which jobs to take or what ones not to take. Cool. I'll see you.